In the post-slavery era, African Americans were forced to take low-paying jobs and face terrible discrimination in the South.
WANT's Doug Wolfe reports tonight on how millions of African Americans sought better paying jobs by moving to northern states in what is now called the Great Migration.
The Great Migration, a mass movement of African Americans from about 1916 to 1970, from rural communities in the South to the more populated urban areas of the North and Northwest. People looking to escape poor living conditions, sharecropping, and racist Jim Crow laws.
In a nutshell, it was for better living conditions and jobs.
It's estimated 6 million African Americans migrated from the South to urban areas in the North. Jobs were found in the auto, steel, and meatpacking industries, especially as World War I and immigration reform in the 1920s prevented immigrants from filling jobs in the U.S. workforce. Wages, which were 75 cents a day in the South, were $5 a day or more in the North. Ada Owens came from a large family in Canton, Mississippi.
I am part of a family of 12 children.
The tall man on the left, Percy Meeks, is Ada's father. Like many African Americans in the South, he would be arrested and treated poorly.
They would whip black folk. No reason, just whip him. And I remember him telling us that.
Joe Roundtree's father came from Tennessee.
He grew up 17 years in Dyersburg, Tennessee. He was born in 1912, and he's told me many a story. It wasn't good.
Joe grew up in Metropolis in southern Illinois. When he graduated high school, Joe and his brothers joined the military.
We all went in the service, Air Force and Army, when we got out of school because it just simply wasn't any work.
Even though Joe was in the military, he still faced discrimination, like when he had to buy a bus ticket to return to Illinois.
There was a line when you go to get a bus ticket, and it had a rope about that big around it, right down the middle. It had colored here and white here. Now I'm in the U.S. Air Force serving my country, and you're still treating me this way?
Housing was another issue for Joe. Few problems with housing in Springfield, while finding a decent place to live in Decatur was an entirely different story.
When I came here in 1965, it was impossible for me to get living quarters that were quality enough to live in.
I was still in the fields in 71, picking and chopping cotton.
Ada eventually moved north to Illinois, and eventually both Joe and Ada ended up with good-paying union jobs at the now demolished Firestone plant in Decatur.
Firestone. I wanted to make money before I started my career in nursing.
Ada never went into nursing and stayed with Firestone. She came north like so many others, looking for a better opportunity.
You think it had to be better if you were constantly harassed in the South, better opportunity, or what was seen as better opportunity.
Firestone had government contracts which required it to hire both minorities and women, opening the door for many jobs here in Decatur.
But I was there when the first woman was hired there. That was because the government started having contracts with Firestone, and that cut and dried that. You had to hire women, or the government wouldn't have given them the contract.
A different time, not so long ago, where African Americans had to struggle for equality. In Decatur, Doug Wolfe, WAND News.
And in recent years, many African Americans have started a reverse migration, moving to the South for better opportunities.